One, two, yeah. That's okay. 21, yes. Okay, out here to our right, we have the domestic airport, REK, built by the British in the summer of 1940. Iceland was occupied by the British on May 10th, 1940, and they built this airport, or the runways, and then in the summer of 1941 the Americans took over, and they built the airport in Keflavik, where you land on your way to Iceland. And we are in Reykjavik, the capital of Iceland. Reykjavik, Smoky Bay. Reyk, R-E-Y-K, means smoke, and where we have that either suffix or prefix in words, it means that we have hot springs that we can use. And when the settlers came to Iceland in the 9th century, they saw smoke coming out of the ground, or what they thought was smoke. And we, of course, today we know it was the steam from the hot springs. So they named it the Bay of Smoke. We're going on the Golden Circle. First we're going to visit Friðheimar, greenhouse, tomato farm, and horse farm, and then it's the hot springs in Haukadalur and Strokkur, the erupting one, and in Geysir, the hot spring area. There we'll stop to have lunch. You can buy there at the restaurants. There are 3 different types of restaurants, so a choice of things. And from Geysir we go to Gullfoss, the Golden Waterfall, and from there to Þingvellir, the Parliament site, where we established our Parliament in the year 930. And from Þingvellir, Parliament Plains, it's back to Reykjavik, and we estimate to be back in the city by around 5 o'clock. And then we have the drop-offs here, there, and everywhere. And yeah, it'll take some time, but it's just part of the tour. Iceland, this island up in the North Atlantic, 103,000 square kilometers, about 57,000 square miles, 390,000 people living on the island, whereof 2/3 are living in Reykjavik. So Reykjavik, densely populated, the rest of the country not so much. And when we consider the fact that over 80% of the country is above 200 meters, 600 feet, and that's uninhabitable, no wonder we are sparsely populated and people are living on the coast, in towns and cities on the coast. And why did the settlers go to Iceland? Well, the settlers, they were unhappy chiefs from Norway who were unhappy with the new laws that the Norwegian king had imposed upon them, and they had heard of land to the west, Ultima Thule and other names, and they decided, okay, we've had it, we're out of here, and decided to sail west. And as they approached the land It was off the eastern coast of Iceland. Then Ingólfur Arnarsson, the first settler in Iceland, he took the pillars that were standing on both sides of his throne. He took them, threw them into the ocean, and said, where the gods decide to let my pillars land, there I'm going to settle down. And after 3 years, they found the pillars on the shore here in Reykjavik. And that's why they settled in Reykjavik. And they sailed to the west just because they had heard of land to the west. It wasn't that they had heard of this beautiful Iceland or something. No media or anything at that time. And I always talk about the settlers. I never talk about the Vikings, because those who came to Iceland, they were not the Vikings, not the robbers, the murderers, the marauders. They were just unhappy chiefs that wanted to have a free life without laws, without rules, and without a king. And they had no rules, no laws for the first 50 years. Then they realized, okay, we need some rules. What to do with people that stole sheep. Stealing sheep was the worst offense at that time. And what to do with people who killed others. And everything about those offenders was decided at the parliament. Now we're in Reykjavik, the capital of Iceland, and Reykjavik is the only capital in the world where we do have two salmon rivers within the city limits. And we're just about to cross one in a minute, the Elliðaár, and you can even go here and catch salmon at affordable prices. We have rivers out in the country where you pay $2,000–3,000 a day. Here, going up here to the right, we have the river Elliðaár. You only pay $200 a day. Now, one fact about Iceland that very often amuses our guests is the fact that we weren't allowed to buy beer in Iceland until March 1st, 1989. We had a total alcohol ban in 1915. 8 years later, the Spanish came and said, you want your fish? Well, then you must buy something from us. Okay, what do you export? Red and white? Okay, we'll take that. By the way, what is red and white? It's wine. Oops. Okay, it's wine. And for a few decades, we were allowed to buy Spánarvín, Spanish wines. In Iceland, no French, no Italians, Austrian, German or anything, Spanish wines. And then in 1940 the troops came, the soldiers, they needed something stronger than wine, so we were allowed spirits, gin, rum, whiskey, but beer, the drink of the devil, no way Jose. You know what happens in Denmark, Germany and England. The men go to the pub at noon and by 2 o'clock they're all dead drunk. And we don't want that to happen in Iceland. Okay. And those were actually the arguments that were used by those who were against legalizing beer in Iceland. we would have an increase in alcoholic diseases and all kinds of things. Degeneration. But there were people in Iceland who were allowed to import beer. The pilots and stewardesses, the sailors and the fishermen, and the people in the foreign embassies. And we even had a brewery in Iceland that brewed the polar beer for the embassies. And then the father of one of the stewardesses said, "This is discrimination. Why is she allowed to import, my daughter allowed to import beer, and I'm not?" So he took the state to court. And it took them 8 years. All kinds of bills through both houses of parliament, rules, regulations, who, etc. Could we buy beer? And on March 1st, 1989, we had our B-Day, our beer day, not our birthday. And all grown-up Icelanders know where that evening started, what happened during the evening and night is blurry in some cases, many cases. And have alcoholic problems increased in Iceland because of the beer? No. They're just at the same level as they were before. And today you can buy beer whatever you want to. You have to go to the wine shop, Vínbúðin. And if you go into the supermarket and see a six-pack looking like beer, even called Gull or Borli or whatever, don't be fooled. It's not beer. It's Pilsner, as we call it, 0.225% alcohol content. So, we have alcohol in it, but it's not something to feel anything. You have to drink a whole bathtub to get drunk. Up in volcanic eruptions, and most of the mountains that we see today were formed in eruptions under the glacier of the Ice Age. So they are high yellowclastite or tough mountains, and they may be table mountains, that is that they have a layer, a field of lava at the top. And when the eruption goes through the surface of the ice, the lava can flow freely, it doesn't mix with the water, the melted ice, and then it flows freely. And because of this fact, scientists have been able to determine how thick the ice was in various areas in Iceland. And here in this part, it was about between 300 and 400 meters thick. Out here to the right, you see those hills here. They are called the Rauðhólar, the Red Hills, and they are what we know as pseudo-craters. They look like craters, they have openings in the middle, and they look like volcanic craters, but they are formed when lava flows across a shallow lake. The water starts boiling and it explodes, forming those crater-like hills. And we've destroyed many of them and had done before this area was turned into a nature reserve. Today it's a nature reserve. You can see those pseudo-craters. Craters that aren't craters because there's no lava flowing into the opening in the hill. It's just an explosion that forms this hole, and that's it. You can see those pseudocraters in 3 places in Iceland, here and in the north and in the east, and you can see them in Hawaii. Those are the only places on Earth where you can see the pseudocraters. So they are a unique phenomenon. And out to the right you see the lights up in the mountains there. That's our skiing area, the Bláfjöll, the Blue Mountains. And up there we also have the phenomenon inside the volcano, a crater into which you can go via lift, but it's only open during the summer because the winds and the weather up there can be so devilish, just can be absolutely horrendous. One winter they left the container which they have as their headquarters, as their base when they're traveling, going into the volcanic crater, and someone came there on a hike during the winter and the container had just disappeared. It had been blown by the wind. And this crater, you go 125 meters, just around 400 feet into the ground via lift, and you see those beautiful colors, rock formations. And if you want to, you can see videos from National Geographic and BBC on YouTube